They were so close to home, they could see the fires burning on the shore. After the horror of the Cyclops, Odysseus and his men came to a floating island ruled by Aeolus, the keeper of the winds. He welcomed them, feasted them for a month, and when they left, he gave Odysseus a parting gift. A great leather bag, tied shut with silver wire, and inside it he had trapped every stormy wind that could blow them off course. Only a gentle west wind was left loose, to carry them straight home. It was the perfect gift, it could not fail. For 9 days they sailed. Odysseus steered the whole time himself, never sleeping, never letting go of the line, until on the 10th day the shore of Ithaca rose up ahead. Home! He could see people tending fires on the hillsides. And finally, exhausted, certain they were safe, he let himself fall asleep. That was the mistake. Because his men had been watching that mysterious bag the whole voyage, and they had convinced themselves it was full of treasure. Silver and gold that their captain meant to keep for himself. So while he slept with home in plain sight, they untied the silver wire. Every wind in the world burst out at once. A shrieking storm seized the ships and hurled them back the way they had come, all the way back to the island of Aeolus. And this time, when Odysseus came ashore and begged for help again, Aeolus recoiled from him. "Get out," he said, "a man this hated by the gods I will not help. Leave." So they rowed away with no wind at all, hearts breaking, and came to a harbor ringed by high cliffs. The land of the Laestrygonians. And the Laestrygonians were giants, and they were cannibals. When Odysseus sent scouts into their town, the giant king snatched one up and ate him, and then the whole tribe came swarming to the cliffs and rained down boulders on the ships crammed in the narrow harbor below, smashing them to pieces and spearing the drowning men like fish. Only one ship survived. Odysseus had moored his own outside the harbor, apart from the rest, and he cut the ropes and screamed at his men to row for their lives. Of the 12 ships that left Troy, now there was one. Everyone else was gone. That one ship came at last to a wooded island, and there lived a goddess named Circe. Odysseus split his men into 2 groups and sent one party inland to scout, led by a man named Eurylochus. They found a house of polished stone, and inside a beautiful voice was singing at a loom, and around the house strange tame lions and wolves moved gently, without menace. The goddess came out smiling and invited the men in. All of them went, all but Eurylochus, who hung back suspicious. She sat them down and mixed them a warm drink, honey and cheese and wine, laced with a drug that stole their memory of home. And the moment they drank it, she struck them with her wand, and they became pigs. Bristled backs, snouts, squealing voices penned in a sty, but their minds stayed human, trapped inside, still knowing exactly what they were. That was the cruelty of it. Eurylochus ran back to the ship, too shaken to speak at first, and told Odysseus his men had vanished. And Odysseus took his sword and went to face the witch alone. On the way, a young man met him on the path. It was the god Hermes in disguise, and he stopped Odysseus and gave him help no other man would ever get. A magic herb, Moly, that would make Circe's poison useless. Drink her potion, Hermes said. When she strikes you and nothing happens, draw your sword and rush at her as if to kill her. She will be terrified. She will offer to take you to her bed. Do not refuse a goddess, but first make her swear a binding oath that she means you no harm. Odysseus did exactly as he was told. Circe mixed her drink, struck him with her wand, and stared in disbelief as he stood there, still a man. He drew his sword. She fell back in fear and made her oath and honored it. She turned his men back from pigs into men, taller and younger, and handsomer than before. And she welcomed the whole crew into her halls. And here is the strange human thing. They stayed, not for days, for a whole year. Feasting, resting, safe at last after so much death, and slowly forgetting why they had ever wanted to leave. It was his men who finally shook him awake. "Come to your senses," they said. "Think of home," and Odysseus went to Circe and asked her to let them go. She would not stop him, but she told him the way home led first through a place no living man was meant to go. "You must sail to the land of the dead," she said, "to the house of Hades. And there you must find the ghost of the blind prophet Tiresias, and only he can tell you how to get home." That broke something in him. He wept on her bed and lost all will to go on. But there was no other way. So Circe told him the rights, sent a wind to carry his ship to the very edge of the world, and let him go. They crossed the great river ocean to a sunless shore wrapped in mist, and there Odysseus dug a pit and poured offerings and sacrificed a black ram and ewe, so the blood pooled dark in the earth. And the dead came. They rose up out of the darkness in crowds, whispering, crying, brides and old men and young soldiers still wearing their wounds, and cold terror gripped him. But he held them back with his sword, letting none of them near the blood until the prophet came. The first ghost to reach him was one of his own. A young crewman named Elpenor, who had died just before they left Circe's island, drunk, falling from her roof, his body still lying unburied while the others sailed. He begged Odysseus to go back and bury him properly, and Odysseus swore he would. Then came the blind prophet, Tiresias, and drank the blood and spoke. "You will reach home," he said, "but the road will be bitter, because Poseidon still hates you for his blinded son. Listen closely. You will come to an island where the sun god keeps his cattle. If your men leave those cattle untouched, you may all still reach Ithaca. But if they harm even one, your ship is destroyed, your men all die, and you come home late and broken and alone, in a stranger's boat, to find your house overrun with men courting your wife. Those men you will kill. And after that, one more journey, and then, far from the sea, a gentle death will come to you in a peaceful old age. Leave the cattle alone, everything turns on that." Then, among the crowding dead, Odysseus saw a face he did not expect, his own mother. She had been alive when he sailed for Troy. Now here she was, a ghost, and he had not even known she was dead. She told him she had not died of sickness. She had died of missing him. And his father was wasting away on the farm, sleeping in the ashes, grieving. And his wife Penelope was holding firm, faithful, weeping through her nights, still waiting. 3 times he reached out to hold her. 3 times she slipped through his arms like smoke, like a dream. "That is what death is," she told him gently. "The body burns away and the spirit flies off, and there is nothing left to hold." And then she was gone. He stayed, and the great dead of the war came to him. Agamemnon, who had come home from Troy in triumph only to be murdered at his own table. Achilles, the greatest of all the Greek warriors, who told Odysseus a hard truth. "I would rather be a poor man's slave among the living," he said, "than a king over all the dead. There is no glory down here, only shadow." And then Ajax, the mighty warrior who had killed himself in shame after losing a contest to Odysseus long ago. He came near, and Odysseus tried to make peace, gently, sorrowfully. And Ajax said nothing at all. He simply turned and walked back into the dark, carrying his rage into death itself. The dead pressed closer, more and more of them, their cries rising, and a cold fear took hold of Odysseus that something worse might be coming for him out of the shadows. So he ran for his ship, and told his men to cast off, and the current of ocean carried them back toward the world of the living. He had heard his fate now, spoken plainly. Home was still possible. But only if he and his men could pass one island, and keep their hands off what belonged to a god. And Odysseus, who could not resist a boast, and could not resist a gift, and could not resist a year in a witch's halls, was sailing straight toward the one temptation that would cost him everything.